Hello and welcome to the new episode of Stun Muffin YouTube channel. In this tutorial, we're gonna learn 3D cursor and also origins. Let's get started. And as you can see, we have an object in our scene. Our object origin is there. The little orange points that actually we can see in here. Let's select our object and move, and just moving a little bit right side. In here, if you are looking in the middle of the scene, we have an icon to see. Actually, this is a 3D cursor. The 3D cursor is a point in space that has both an location and a rotation. It's used for a number of purposes. For example, it defines where newly added objects are placed, and can also be used to manually position and orient the transform gizmo. Some tools such as bend also use the cursor. There are a few methods to position the 3D cursor. The first thing, we can change actually our object, our 3D cursor in a place. For example, using this toolbar on this actually button, the cursor. And as you can see, if I left click in here and then I'm actually with a left mouse button, if I drag any place, and as you can see, my 3D cursor is actually changed automatically, right? And we need to actually change our 3D cursor to any place. The next one is actually we can change our cursor to using for just a shortcut with a shift and right mouse button. And as you can see, maybe you are in this cursor tool in here, but sometimes you are making some mistakes to actually replace your 3D cursor any place. At that time, actually we can reset their location and rotation. But the first thing, let's find the 3D cursor's location and rotation. If you go to sidebar or press N on your keyboard and just like here, go to width and just shrink all of your options there. Just use the 3D cursor to actually see your 3D cursor's location and rotations. And if you want to make some kind of actually changes in the scene, and you can change your values like here, locations, for example, in here, and also rotations. Let's just click and hold all of the rotations, and then just press 0 and enter. And as you can see, my 3D cursor's location and rotation is 0. But sometimes you can make a lot of mistakes like this. And how do we every time goes with 3D cursor location rotation clear? There is no point to make same thing. So let's learn some kind of new things. Press Shift and S to open Snap Pie menu. This is a pie menu. You have actually a lot of options to see any kind of actually modifications. For example, if you press right mouse button or escape, let's just find into it again, Shift and S, and pie menu is there. If you don't want any type of actions, just right click or escape on your keyboard. And also you can actually select your options there. You can use Shift and S to open your Snap Pie menu in the 3D side. Okay, in here, the first option we have actually cursor to world origin. If I click this, my object's whole location and rotation just clear at the same time. And also let's actually change our toolbars to select box, and in here we can change 3D cursor with a shift and right mouse button too. And as you can see, your 3D cursor goes any place, your right mouse button, just shift and right mouse button, hold it and place it. If you want any type of actually snap things, and you need to open your snapping actions. For example, I'm just going to here. This is a snap drink transformation. Any kind of actually transformation, you need to open this transform to snap, actually turn on this snap in here. And also you can change in here to snapping actions. For example, increments or vertex or edge, different kind of actually snap toggles. But we just click in here to vertex because we see, and we want to just 3D cursor snaps our vertex side. So I'm just selecting in here and then going to in there and shift and right mouse button, and you can see my 3D cursor actually snaps my object's vertex. So if I make any kind of this actually things, I can change my object origins using for the 3D cursor. Okay, before we do that, the 3D cursor is so important, so significant elements in the actual Blender. We have a lot of options to make any kind of these things. Let's get just clear our to cursor to world origin, and also turn off your snapping options there. And we have a second things in this Blender, to more significant things to learn actions is there, and we have an object origins. And what is that, the object origins? Object origins that you are all of your modifications, all of your object modifications looking for your object origin, not a 3D cursor. Okay, this is all of your modifications, and you can see, actually go to modifier properties, and you can just click the add modifier, and you can see all of this actually modifier just related to your object origins. For example, array, mirror, and script, or any type of actually deforming things looking for your object origins. Object origins has just location and rotations. So go to item to sidebar, and you can see your object, and click your object, and you can see your object location, rotation, just and scaling things. And we need to learn some our object's origin to change. This is more important things. And as you can see, just one point, pretend your whole objects just origins, and that point has a location and rotation. This is more significant things in the Blender. So if I actually clear my all location, and as you can see, my origin points goes same place, actually the 3D cursor. The 3D cursor, because in here the default actually things is a 0 0 0, the rotation 0 0 0. As you can see, our object origins there. If I right click and select and right click and go to set origin tab in this object context menu and set origin tab, to we have actually changed our origin points to 3D cursor. If I select this option, and as you can see, my origin points just goes there. And if I make any kind of movement, and as you can see, you can change to origin to geometry as before. And also we have to learn in here the transform pivot points. Okay, in here, if I change transform pivot points to 3D cursor, and as you can see in here, my whole objects just pretend their origins in here, because we are using transform pivot point to 3D cursor. If I make any type of transformation, it actually related to 3D cursor, so that if I make any type of rotate, and as you can see, my objects rotate around the 3D cursor, not their origins. If I make any type of these changes, if I want to, yes, I can. And transform pivot point, go to medium point, and you can actually change your whole. This is a transform pivot point, not a modifier actually actions. Okay, you need to don't forget this. This is just a there actually transform pivot point too. We can actually change our objects locations and just rotations using different kind of methods. So we need to we can change our object's origin to any place. For example, let's get clear our object location to 0 and rotation to 0, and then I'm just moving here. We can change our object's origins in edit mode. Let's select our objects and go to edit mode, and as you can see, and I see my object origins there, and then I select all of my object things, and I'm just moving my whole faces and vertices, and as you can see, my actually object origins there, but I just change my object faces, vertices, and also edges. And as you can see, this is so important things, because if I change my mode to object mode, and I'm just giving to this any type of actions or modifiers, I can see object origins there, and I can make any kind of things and editing things around my object origins, not the 3D cursor. You need to actually more careful of using your origins. Actually, every time you have to check your object origins to modeling these things. But in here, we have options to the different options. We don't have to look every time our object origins. Okay, and same time, yes, we have to and not. But some kind of modifiers have axis object. What is that? This is actually we can add any type of object, just pretend our object's origins. Any type of object. There is no point to 2D, 3D, and just like that. Let's add some kind of Shift A to mesh and a cube, and also let's get Shift A to UV sphere, and also Shift A to create a monkey. Okay, let's look for the actually just moving in here to here, and my objects in there, but object origins here. As you can see, just looking for my object origins, and this is a magic. If I select my eyedropper to any object, and as you can see, my actually objects origins change. It's pretend to be just this monkey object origin points, just like this. If I change in here, my object origins just pretend this is my object origin. Okay, if you press the Z, and also you can see, but also let's turn on the toggle X-ray to see what happens our objects. So let's actually select our objects again, and let's clear our X object to in this sphere, and as you can see, my objects pretends like these object origins, not an object. Okay, and let's just make some kind of again to cube, and as you can see, my object origins every time can changeable. Okay, in any place. This is our changeable objects like that. This is because this is pretend to be our object's origin points. Okay, the next one, let's just turn off the toggle X-ray mode, and the next one is an array and also simple deforms. For example, if I make any array of my objects, for example in here, let's just make it 10, and also adding some kind of simple deform. It is related to my object origins again. If I bend this goes these object origins to actually some kind of bending things, and X and Y axis go to Z axis, and as you can see, my object origins see in here. Let's change our object origin. Look at this. Look at this. Every time some kind of these modifiers have any object's origins. Let's just origin, pretend to be this cube. And now my object simple deform origins now is this cube. If I change my object origins to any place, as you can see, my objects change. Why? Because their modifier actually origins pretend its object origins, not this. Okay, if I make any kind of this movement, and I can see my whole objects, this kind of actually modify things. Please be careful of using this type of origins, and you have to learn some kind of these things. Okay, this is an object origin points, and we can change whatever we want, and also we have a 3D cursor. Let's look for the 3D cursor options in here, the 3D cursor options, and in here I'm just using Shift S again. Let's find the snap option, snap pie menu to actually see our cursor and selection options, what they do. The first thing we can see, like this kind of mouse cursor icon is there. This icon actually show us this is a selections, all of your selections, selected objects. For example, let's right click in here. If I make some kind of these things, and this means if I press Shift and S, and as you can see, we have a selection options. For example, selection to cursor, we need to change actually our objects places. For example, like this, and let's just like to do this, and I'm just clear all of the modifiers, and let's just moving our objects any place. For example, in here to press G to move our objects actually movement shortcut any place. There is no way to get actually things to do. So select all of your objects in here. If you select all of your objects, and as you can see, this is all of your selection objects median center, and we can change we can actually rotate in here to or move any place, and also scale it just like here to make some kind of actually scale. But in here, let's get just select box and shift and S, and the first thing is selection to cursor. All of my selected object actually follows the 3D cursor. Actually, their offsets not change. For example, if I press this and all of my objects actually points, selected medium points goes 3D actually cursor. And also we have a snap selection to offset the cursor like here, and this is actually turned on the offset sections. If I turn off this option, and as you can see, my whole object just collapses just 3D cursor. And as you can see, the next one is this, and shift S, selection to cursor, just moves like all of our objects goes the 3D cursor. And the next one is selection to active. This is like, for example, I just move my objects, I just select my all objects to remove my object's origin, as you can see in here. And with a shift and select and active, and all of the oranges is passive, this is actually active, and shift S and selection to active. If I snap all of my objects just selection to active goes. And the next one, let's get Control Z to back our object options and Shift S. The next one is selection to grid, and right click. If I do like this, press go to Z axis on the pivot side and select all of your objects and go to turn on toggle X-ray mode. And as you can see, maybe my all object origins is not actually snapping to grid, right? And if I make any kind of these actions, select all of them and press Shift S and go to selection to grid. As you can see, if I click that, and my whole object's origins just snapping grids, as you can see. Okay, just turn off the toggle X-ray mode again, and let's look for the 3D cursor options over there. The next one is Shift S, the cursor to active. For example, if I select this kind of object and Shift and S, cursor to active, the 3D cursor actually goes your object's origin points. Okay, then just click, and as you can see, my 3D cursor goes my object origins. And then again, Shift S to cursor to world origin. Okay, the next one is cursor to select. For example, if I select all of my objects, and you can see if I don't my object median center, and I'm just selected all of my objects and just any kind of tool set, just show us our object origins, as you can see, and Shift and S and cursor to selected. As you can see, all of my selected objects origins goes like that, and my 3D cursor snaps my whole selected objects median center. So let's get Shift S again and cursor to world origin. The next one is the cursor to grid, and you see actually on the top side in here, let's change our 3D cursor, Shift and right mouse button, and just here I'm just zooming my 3D cursor in here, and then Shift and S and cursor to grid. If I select this, and as you can see, my 3D cursor actually snaps the grid just like this. So if I make some kind of this bigger than this and Shift S, cursor to grid, it goes like that. If I go some kind of big, then again cursor to grid, it goes like nearest of the grid, snaps the grid. Okay, let's get just Shift and S and cursor to world origin selected. And also we saw transform pivot points like here. For example, we using this 3D cursor and object origins like this. Let's find it. Let's just delete the sphere and Shift and A and add your scene to cylinder. For example, like this, and let's make some kind of 6 side of cylinder, and like here I want to actually my objects around to my actually cylinder. How we can actually make like that? Press S to scale a little bit, and like that. Let's actually align our cube this object faces around. For example, like this. If I make 2, I'm just select my object and go to object mode to edit mode and go to face selection mode and select your faces and Shift S, and we need to cursor to selected. And as you can see, my 3D cursor goes faces median center like here. And now I'm going to object mode in here, and let's get just our object to select and press Shift S, and again this is going to be selection to cursor, and in here like that. And also I'm just making a little bit movement like that. Let's add just one more and right click, and for now I'm just moving my cube just using for my 3D cursor. Let's use it. For now I'm just going to change my transform pivot point to 3D cursor and change my object. It's the same here. To create one more, press Shift D and right mouse button, and you can create one more. And also using for the rotate and this using axis to use my objects like this. This is one of them, and the next one is here also, and like that. So the next one, let's get more adding 1, 2 and 3, and just moving my cube here to here maybe, and like here. And as you can see, I'm using the 3D cursor and my objects to actually create like this kind of stuffs. Okay, we actually make this kind of stuff. And then let's just go to select box, and with a shift on your keyboard multiple select your object. In here let's scale our objects with a little bit. As you can see, my object actually goes far away, but I don't like this. Press escape tool and go to in here the transform pivot point. Change your transform pivot point to individual origins. It helps us to actually pretend their object origins just like their object origins. Every object origins just looking for their object origins. If I press individual origins and press S to scale, and as you can see my object scale, I don't change their origins and just like individually scale it like here. And then again, this is the default one, the median point. Okay, the median point is important because this is a default one, and you have to actually clear your transform point just like the median point like that to actually make kind of object and origins like that. We need to know object origins actually change. Let's get clear our objects. For example, create our any type of mesh. If I create in here, okay, you can see my object origins just spawn here, 3D cursor, not my world origin. All of my adding objects, as you can see, my spawning points, there is goes like spawning points to create in here, but we need to clear. How we can clear? Shift S and cursor to world origin. And again, the next one is, let's add a cube, and we see our cube in the middle of our scene again, the 3D cursor. Let's get item just mirror, and I don't see anything. If you want to make some kind of actually mirror things, you need to actually change your origins. Before we saw, and we have a mirror object. Well, for example, in here, let's select our monkey and like here to with an eye drop, and as you can see, we now see our mirror object. For now, if I select my monkey or objects origins and just change my object origins any kind of location, and as you can see, my mirror object just pretend my object origin points same time. So I can change any type of actually edit mode to make some kind of this objects and creating any type of actually things. And I cannot using my object origins, but I can use a mirror object just like a monkey. In here I'm going to in object mode, and in here I'm just change my origin point. This is pretend to be my origin points, the mirror object like that, and I can work what I want like here. You have to learn actually your object's origin. If you clear in here, as you can see, my object origins pretend to be my object origins, but if I click the eyedropper and select my monkey, and as you can see, my monkey is my now object origin. But before we further, we need to apply all of these things. Okay, this mirror is good for me, and go to in here to apply your objects every time, don't forget. And I'm applying my mirror and right click, and as you can see, set origin to geometry, and as you can see, my object origin goes middle, median, center of all of my object location and rotations. We need to learn in here to actually some kind of bending stuffs. For example, let's get actually add and mesh and cube, and let's get add some kind of erase, for example like this, and also for example like this, and array, and also adding some kind of simple deform, and then go to bend and change your origin to monkey, like goes like z-axis, and select your object and change your object origins like whatever you want, and change your actually settings, and you can see your object origins points like pretends like your object origins. And then every time if you make some kind of these actions and go to all of your actually options to apply things to bend of your objects, and like that we see the object origins and also 3D cursor. This is more significant things in Blender before we start modeling, and we see a lot of these things to actually shift S to selections or cursor or 3D cursor. Okay, we saw 3D cursor, we saw the origin points to show us anything, any kind of options. They are so important things. And thank you for watching me, and if you like the video, please like and comment down below. If you ask any type of question, no problem, do not hesitate. And thank you for watching me, and see you next time.